What's going on, everyone? It's Brendan here. Welcome to another episode of Sumariwolf. In this podcast, the entire point of this is so that I can try and teach you manifestation techniques. And the way that I'm choosing to do that is through, like life experience and displaying to you what I'm kind of doing to manifest the reality that I wish to live. And hopefully through doing that, I can inspire you to do the same thing. So the reason of this episode that I wanted to create is that I've been thrust into a very interesting situation in life where things have become increasingly difficult and and it's led me to a point where it's been very difficult to get what I need done on a daily basis, and it's also it's given me a lot of excuses to not do the thing that I know that I need to do. And so I figured that by making this episode and talking about this and kind of explaining the situation I'm in and what I'm trying to do and where I'm going with it, it may hopefully influence you to possibly get out of your own way or prevent yourself from blocking yourself from moving forward in life. So a number of months ago, I've made a few videos on this topic, but a number of months ago, I ended up quitting my career, which I've been an arborist for the last 7 years. If you don't know what an arborist is, it's someone who basically prunes, removes anything to do with trees. So I was a subcontracting climbing arborist. I was also running my own business on the side. And I was making very good money doing this. I really enjoyed the job. The reason I got into the job is because I thought it would be a cool one to get into, and it absolutely was. It was definitely the best job that I've ever had in my entire life. And anyone who is wondering about getting into such a trade, I could not recommend it more. The benefits of wrestling trees all day and putting yourself in extremely dangerous situations on a daily basis, it helps you develop a slant of mind that you wouldn't be able to get any other way, I don't think. There's nothing quite like rocking up to work on a daily basis and looking at the job and thinking, oh yeah, well there's an actual chance I might die doing this. And just the level of adrenaline and the amount of clarity that you need to have and how switched on you have to be and able to be able to pull off this kind of stuff on a daily basis, it really, really changes you as a human. Which is half the reason I got into it. I wanted to evolve into a man, basically. And this career served me really well. I started off doing power line work, which was essentially clearing trees away from power lines out of like the cherry picker out of a truck, like the boom out the back. And then I was waking up not really inspired anymore, and I knew that I wanted to climb trees. So I ended up leaving that and learning how to climb trees, bought all my harness and my saws and all my equipment, my rigging gear and stuff, and worked my way up until I eventually started contract climbing, which is basically where I'd advertise my services as a climber, and businesses would contact me and I'd give them a day rate and climb trees for them for the day, so on and so forth. And as I said, this was one of the best jobs I've ever had. It was so much fun. It's so physically and mentally demanding that it gives you both a mental and a physical strength that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And so through this thing, I kind of just kept getting further in my career, better job opportunities, better money, better workmates, all this kind of stuff. And it got to a point where I finally kind of hit where I wanted to get to in my life. And I remember when I got into tree work in the first place, I do a lot of manifestation. I have a lot of videos on manifestation, and that's what the whole channel is kind of about. It's about how to apply visualization and manifestation techniques and how to actually follow the universal language that pushes you to the point where these things will actually come to fruition in real life. And so for the longest time, I used to visualize, and I used to write, and I used to journal. I'm a big advocate for journaling. And I used to write to myself like, oh yeah, I want to climb trees, and I want to get to the point where, I'm a contract climber and I have all of my own equipment and I've got like a 4-wheel drive, and you know, I go out and I run the crew and I'm working with like really cool people and we're having fun and I'm making lots of money. And then, you know, eventually I can hopefully contract from 4 to 6 days a week, or, you know, work 4 to 6 days a week and then spend the rest of my time pursuing music. Because when I got into tree work, my entire goal was, well, I was like, what do I want to do for a living? I want to be a rock star. And that's not really something that you can just fall into or start doing. So I was like, what's the next best thing? And I was like, well, climbing trees and using chainsaws is pretty cool. So I'm gonna do that instead until I can facilitate the ability to nurture my musical career. And so throughout the whole journey, you know, music was always the thing in the back of my mind. I was always like, yeah, cool, gonna do this, and get the band happening, and eventually like invest this money and do music videos and, you know, start recording and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, had small success. Like my band released a music video, we recorded some stuff, and I, you know, started building a studio and, you know, learned how to produce and mix and master and all that kind of stuff. And it got to a point a number of months ago where I was just living the life, you know what I mean? I was climbing trees, working with one of my best mates, you know, driving to work, driving to site at 8 a.m, listening to my sugar all morning, and just like getting to site, hanging with the boys, climbing trees, doing cool shit, you know, trying to one up one another, having good banter, finishing early, getting paid well, and coming home and just riffing out all day, and then, you know, hanging out with the dogs and stirring them up, and just, you know, eating really well and hitting the gym, and just everything was perfect, you know what I mean? And I knew that it was. And I would say to myself, and I would write in my journal, I would say, I know how good life is right now. This is really fantastic, and I know that it's going to change quite soon. Like, I know that within the next 10 months, I'm going to have a big shift, and because I'm quite aware of, I've begun to learn how manifestation cycles kind of work. There's a bit of like a manifestation stage where you kind of plan or plant the psychic seeds that you want to grow from your probable future. And once you have enough focus upon these things, a momentum begins to build toward bringing them into actuality. And a lot of the time, there will be a major shift in your life where things will become very uncomfortable. And this tends to happen to me roughly around this time every year. Last year, it happened, I went through a breakup, and then I fell out of a tree and nearly broke my back on a fence. And then all my bandmates quit and my housemates moved out, and like everything just turned to shit all at once. But I knew that it was a good challenge to get through, see what would happen. And things ended up really good in the end, as I said. But you know, it really just forces you to focus. And the year before, I got more sick than I've ever been, and that led me to discovering mediumship and psychic intuition and developing my skills as a psychic medium, which has led me to where I am now, which is what I'm trying to pursue for work. And so not to digress, but yeah, it got to a point where life was fantastic, and it is fantastic. But I knew at the time, I was like, things are very good right now, and I know that things are going to change very soon, because I want them to. I want that next level of growth, that next level of development. And I had this realization where I was thinking about my future and what I wanted, and I was journaling, and I had this realization of like, wait a second, when I actually got into tree work, my whole goal was to work 4 to 6 days a week, contract climbing, working with the group crew, doing my thing, and I'm doing it. Like I'm here. Like I've manifested the thing that I was focusing upon, and I was slowly pushed into this position where I've got what I wanted. And upon that realization, I was like, well, man, I guess like, how far can I take this? Like if I managed to go from being like a skinny, unhealthy, video game addicted loser and got myself out of that position and turned into a, you know, someone who I could honestly say that I'm proud of being, what's the next step? Like most people wouldn't even climb a ladder to the top, let alone go up a 50 to 60 meter eucalyptus and use a chainsaw while hanging from a rope. Like, in the scheme of things, getting from where I was to that position is probably a more remarkable achievement than succeeding in a music career, really. Like, something that's safe and fun that I'm passionate about. And so I started using these visualization techniques. And within these techniques, there's a few of them that I really like to use, but there's one particular one that I'll do every single morning that I really recommend. And basically what you do in this technique is every morning, I'd wake up at 5:30 in the morning, wouldn't look at my phone, anything like that. You know, I really believe in allowing your mind to wake up and allow your brain to not just be like startled first thing in the morning, like let it really just kind of come into physical reality rather than out of the dream state, and really like just take care of your mind. And so 5:30 would happen, hit the alarm, and I'd immediately get up with my dogs Luna and Xena, and I'd take them down to the local park. And at this park, I'd let them go for a run, and I had this spot that I'd sit and I'd meditate for, I don't know, 20 minutes or something. And within this meditation, I would start it off with a breathwork exercise, which would just be like 5-second box breathing. So I'd breathe in for 5 seconds, hold for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, and then hold for 5 seconds again. And I'd do this a repetition of times, maybe 10, 15 times, until my system was calm. And once, well, not was calm, but is calm, because, sorry. But, you know, until my system's calm. And once my system is calm, I would then resume regular breathing, but it would just be like, and just trying to really slow my system down as much as possible, to the point where, you know, I almost didn't have to breathe. That was kind of the goal, almost to the point where you're back in the sleep state, basically. And once I'm here, I would reflect on the dreams that I had the night before, but I would also then begin this visualization practice, because the first rule and the main rule and the only real rule of manifestation is that you get what you focus upon. And so if you aren't necessarily, if you're focusing on the stress in your life and the job that you have and just all these things and the news and social media and whatever's going on outside, the politics that we're talking about, that's what's going to be drawn into your experience. But if you begin to focus upon the reality that you want, the life that you want, there are certain universal shifts that begin to happen on a quantum scale that bring them into actuality. They attract them into your subjective experience and do birth into literal real events. And so within this, I was like, okay, well, let's push this. Let's go for a big one. What is it that I actually want to do with my life? What do I really want to do? Like, if money was not an option and I had infinite money, infinite time, infinite health, what is the thing I would do? And immediately it is, I would play music, I would create music, I would write music, I would record music, and I would push to travel the world and share my creative vision with people. And whilst doing this, I would also love to share my philosophy on spirituality and psychic development and manifestation. And then further down the track, I was like, it would be really cool to, like, sorry, I don't like saying like, but I say it a lot, but it would be really awesome to build a recording studio. And I'd love to have a studio in the woods somewhere, like a cabin studio, but you walk in and there's crystals and salt lamps and tapestries and house plants, and just make it a purely spiritual space where it's a very sacred place to be in. And I would love to bring bands and artists into this space and perform, you know, psychic and spiritual rituals to enhance the creativity and the creative power within the room, and help artists harness their creative abilities and help them bring out the exact vision that they want and create a more harmonious and spiritual music movement, or just creative movement, basically. And this is something that I've always just like loved the idea of wanting to do. And so I started visualizing this, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start like visualizing this future. And I'd see myself like on stage with my Jackson Rhodes, like playing to people, and they're really like loving the music that I'm creating. And, you know, the music that I'm creating, it's not just, it's like, you know, obviously kind of progressive death metal influenced music, but with a very, very spiritual meaning behind it. And also I love the use of, because I very much believe in, like if I were to say I had a religion that I followed, it would be the religion of nature. And so I highly believe in nature and our connection to it, and it being, you know, I believe that like Mother Nature is the earth god, so to speak. And I really fuck with that. And so, you know, I love putting sounds of rivers and forests and birds and streams of water and, you know, and fire, and putting natural earthly elements within the music to transport the listener to where I want them to be, and utilizing it as a form of hypnosis to bring them into, you know, create music as if it's a fully artistic experience, and to challenge the attention span and to create works of art rather than, you know, it's my way of going against the whole like top 5 TikTok breakdowns and the short attention span phenomena that we experience these days. I want to go and start pushing people in the opposite direction and start bringing them back to wanting to engage, wanting to explore more, being intrigued about the art that they're listening to. And, you know, and then as well, creating, you know, becoming someone as a producer of sorts who help other bands go on that creative venture. And so I started seeing myself, playing guitar and, you know, creating this music, and the energy that it was like, creating a healing energy with the music that I'm creating. Like the intention behind it is to heal, and it's to help people with their mental health and their physical health and their spirituality and their development as humans, and help them, hopefully influence them to start strengthening and developing their psychic abilities. And, you know, and so I started visualizing this and focusing upon it every single day, all the time, constantly focusing. I want this to happen. I want this to happen. I want to do this with my life. This would be the most fulfilling, beautiful, incredible thing that could ever happen if I could do this. And I would give every single fiber of my being to doing this and to helping people and helping inspire people to create and go on a creative venture in their life rather than doing the job that they don't enjoy, and helping people understand how to listen to their intuition, develop their psychic intuition and their abilities, and read the universal language in the way that it communicates with us in order to help guide us to our greatest purpose. And so very shortly after, some very major, huge things began to happen. And within a month, the main bloke that I was working for, where I had this really incredible opportunity where I was running his business, working with one of my best mates, just like cruising, having fun, making good money, everyone was on board. Out of nowhere, he just turned on me and essentially stole from me in a way. Not exactly stole, but it was a very, it was not the right way to treat someone. Really, the very low integrity. And once this happened, you know, as I said, you know, I have a lot of self-respect and a lot of dignity, and if someone betrays me in some way like that, I'm not going to have anything really to do with them again. It's like, okay, like I know my value as a person, and I know my value as a friend and a worker. And to be treated with that much disrespect means that this is clearly not the place for me to be. And it made me quite upset at the time. I didn't know why it was happening. And upon further inspection of the incident, I realized that not to get into the story, because it's a bit of it's a long-winded thing, but it's essentially I felt very disrespected, and upon further inspection of wondering why I felt disrespected, it was because, you know, I didn't feel like I was being treated with the respect that I deserved in the business. And after kind of looking at it, I was like, well, you know, I'm not really the authority in the business. I'm the crew leader, but I'm not the boss. And the reason I'm not the boss is because tree work isn't the thing that I'm fully passionate about. I love it and I enjoy it, but it's not the thing I'm fully passionate about. And if it was, then I would be the boss, because that's where I'd want to go. And so I questioned, and I was like, okay, well, what would I want to be the boss at? What would I be an authority at? And I was like, well, creating music and being an artist and recording music and pushing this psychic and this creative vision that I want. That's what I want to do. And then I realized that, you know, after manifesting this vision for a long time, this is what sparked this whole thing. Because I put the notion into the elements and I planted that seed. Once you do this and you start visualizing these versions of yourself, or this probable reality, there is a shift that happens within you where you begin to give off a completely different energy that is fully aligned with that vision, and the environment around you adapts to it. And despite still working super hard, despite trying to do my best and always like putting in the best effort that I could, in a subconscious way, everyone picked up on the fact that I didn't want to be there anymore, because my mind was elsewhere. I wasn't focusing on tree work anymore, because I had already achieved my previous manifestation, which was to become the contract climber that I was. And now my mind was elsewhere, and out of nowhere, within a matter of weeks, I was thrown into a position where I had to either choose to go back to tree work, which I didn't want to do because I felt very disrespected and knew what was kind of going on with the universe, and I knew that it was pushing me in this other direction. And so over the last few months, I've been, you know, I listened to this intuition. I listened to it, and it was saying, hey mate, like, it's time for you to move on from tree work, and it's time for you to pursue the thing that you love. And as I said, I've been studying spirituality and spiritual concepts and now psychic development and manifestation since I was about 19 years old. So this is going on like 12, 13 years now. And prior to now, even earlier, I had a few different channels. I used to create psychic development work. You can find all the videos on this channel still. But obviously you'll see them, and I was a far less confident person in what I was talking about, because I knew that what I wanted to teach was manifestation, and that I could only teach manifestation to the degree that I was capable of manifesting. And the fact that I wanted to do it for a living, but I wasn't doing it for a living, left me in a bit of a paradox where I was only able to share a certain amount of information, or be an authority on a certain amount of information. But at this point in my life, I've really done the research, and I've explored so much of life, and I've now managed to get actual confirmation of the fact that I can manifest and things come out exactly the way that I want them to. And the next, so as you develop your psychic abilities, you'll begin to be able to download information from the source, so to speak. I think a lot of people refer to it as the Akashic Records. I just call it the source, or just our intuition. But the next vision that came to me was that I needed to, like, the journey that I would now embark on would be doing this. It would be, hey, now it's time to actually teach people how to manifest. And the way that you're going to teach people how to manifest is by documenting the process of you manifesting. And so that's the reason that I started this entire channel, this podcast, is because this is going to be my documentation of how to manifest. And hopefully, with enough success, which I definitely will get because I know what I'm doing now, this community will grow, and I'll be able to teach more and more people how to actually achieve the reality that they want to achieve in their life, and not just necessarily predict the future, but actually design their own future and watch it come into fruition in real time. And so I started receiving a lot of psychic information of the next steps that I needed to take. And one of the main ones was like, okay, you need to start sharing this information, you need to quit tree work, you need to get rid of your tree gear, and you need to jump into this venture 2 feet into the deep end with no safety net. But then I was also told, and you're not meant to charge for this either. And I was like, okay, well, great. That's an awesome solution there. Like, quit my job, sell all my gear, and then do something where I'm not allowed to charge money for it. Like, but I'll listen to you because it's what I've been practicing and this is what I want to do. And so the last couple of months have been very interesting, learning how to live like that. And so many incredible things have happened since. Like, after leaving tree work and essentially aligning with myself fully, you know, playing music all day, recording music all day, meditating for hours and studying and learning. So many incredible things. Like, all of my relationships with all of my family members have begun to thrive. Things have just come into my reality that I didn't know were possible. My musical playing skills have gone through the roof. I really hurt my wrist about a year ago, climbing a massive tree out in the Dandenongs, and a massive like piece of timber came back at me and I had to stop it, and it fully jarred my wrist back, and it prevented me from playing guitar the way I needed to, and I couldn't do push-ups, and it like really caused me a lot of issue. I had to wear a brace on my hand every day at work, and then using a chainsaw and doing all this kind of stuff. It was just making it worse and worse. But my wrist is finally healed, which is a really incredible feeling, being able to, you know, have full motion of that again. But yeah, so I slowly, and as well, it led me, so basically what I was doing is I knew that it wasn't time for me to jump into this venture early on. I knew that there was going to be a bit of a period where I had to learn this new version of myself, and it came to me in very interesting ways. A lot of challenges came up. Certain things like, you know, I had a friend who betrayed me harder than anyone had betrayed me in my entire life. Like, did one of the most horrible things to me, and you know, I completely stopped talking to him because of it. And while I was out one day, because one of the other intuitions I was getting was that I needed to set up my recording studio, like turn my house into a recording studio. And I didn't know why. I was just receiving this information. It was more like I needed to turn my house into a recording studio where I could shoot podcast episodes and create music, and also have it as a space to do healings and psychic development mentoring. And I knew how it needed to look. Like, I had the idea in my brain. I was like, I need these like red curtains and the couch and the speakers and the guitars and the guitar amps and everything. And so I was getting the curtains, and on the way back, I just got this message come through saying, hey, you should swing by, what's his name's house? And I'm like, fuck, really? Like, I don't really want anything to do with that human, but I guess I'll do it. So I just swung past his house, and as I'm going past, he pulls up in his car, and I was like, oh, there he is. I'll go and chat to him. And, you know, hopped out of the car and just had a chat for a bit, hung out for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And, you know, afterwards ended up leaving. But these things started to happen where I realized that I was moving into a space of healing, because that's the general gist of what I want to do, like with my music and with recording and everything I want to do. It's all about healing. And I realized that in order to step into this venture, I needed to heal myself. And the way that I could only do that is by letting go of the trauma that I had held. And regardless of what someone else had done to me, I was still able to, I guess, like forgive them to some degree, or let them know that I had forgiven them, or let go of what I'd been holding on to, because anger and hatred will bind you to someone just as much as love does. It's a very dark, and it's an energy that sticks to you. And if you can find a way to let things go, I highly recommend it, because after that happened, I got home and I just felt so much more free. And these certain intuitions kept happening where I'd get something like that and it would make me feel uncomfortable and there'll be an anxiety about it. But every time I would go through something and I'd face the anxiety and I'd go through the challenge, it would lead me somewhere beautiful on the other side. And I know that I'd be significantly more fulfilled and ready to do the next thing. And, it even led me to, at another point, I'm getting ready to go on this venture and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be awesome. And like, sorry, I don't want to get like too personal with things. I can digress in so many directions. But one of the things that ended up happening is that I started getting this information where it was like, you need to sell your tree gear. Like, you need to sell your harness, you need to sell all your stuff because you're not going back to it. And I knew in my heart, I was like, I don't think I could spend another day on site if I tried. Like, it would just, I'd just blow my brains out. I wouldn't be able to handle it. Like, it's not what I want to do, and my body would just not want to be there. And so, but I still had the tree gear despite knowing that I wanted to go on this venture, because I went to sell it, but I was like, oh, I'll put it really expensive and just try and make money off it and everything. And this one night came where I realized that I was ready to kind of jump into this. A whole bunch of things had kind of happened. Again, like I was led to resolve a lot of the traumas that I was holding, or just like negative impacts that I had put on people as a less informed man when I was younger. And after resolving a lot of this negative energy, I was then faced with this thing. It was like, all right, if you want this to happen, you got to sell your tree gear, you got to get rid of it. And so I ended up listing it. Some young bloke said he wanted to buy it. He was getting into the arboriculture industry, and I was like, that's awesome. That's like exactly who I'd want to sell this stuff to. So he came around, and I gave him a whole bunch of extra stuff, just really kind of amped him up. And I was like, this is going to be like really enjoyable, man. You're going to love it. He went home, and at this point, I'm walking inside. I'm like, all right, like I don't have a backup anymore, because, I haven't been earning money since I left this industry, and I have some expensive bills to pay. And as I walked inside, I saw my studio and stuff, and I just got this overwhelming urge to play music. I was like, I just want to play music. I just want to riff. I just want to get stuck into it. But all of a sudden I got anxious, because I was like, oh no, like I need to launch my business, and I need to get my spiritual development business happening, and I haven't made any money, and I got bills to pay, and I got to do that, and like started stressing out. And also another thing that had like happened recently is, so out of nowhere, we had like because I rent still, I had a safety check come through, and electrician and plumber and all that have to come through and just check everything. And this bloke was like, hey, you've got a major gas leak, so I've had to like shut your gas off, and just like left the house. And I'm like, all right, like what am I meant to do with this? And he's like, oh, I sent an email to the real estate. And then I'm like looking at it, I'm like, well, that's all of my cooking, all of my heating, my hot water, and like my entire livelihood kind of thing is reliant on having gas at the house, and now you've just turned it off. Hit up the real estate. I'm like, hey, like I need this sorted. So we had someone else come out to suss it out, and he goes, oh mate, like this is a real bad gas leak. Like the pipe is kind of burst kind of thing, and the way that it is running under your house, we can't actually get to it. So we need to actually create an entirely new gas line outside to actually be able to give you gas again. And I'm like, all right. So the real estate's like, yeah, we'll get some people out and we'll suss it out, and send someone out, and they go, oh yeah, no. So like your heater and your water heater and your oven and everything is not actually compliant. So we have to replace everything. And rather than doing gas, everything's trying to change over to electricity now. So we're actually just going to swap it all over to electric. But that means we have to install a new heater, a new water meter, and a new oven. And if you want to do that, we also have to upgrade your switchboard, which means that we have to get the power company to come out to turn the power off so we can install that and then install everything else. And this is going to be like thousands and thousands of dollars for your landlord. So they need to get some quotes happening. And so after this happened, I've now been without gas, like cooking, heating, and hot water for 2 weeks now. And it's been the most punishing experience because we are in the middle of winter in Melbourne, which means the nights are absolutely freezing. And, you know, now I'm in this situation where I'm trying to build this business and I've quit aviculture, but now, like, you know, I have to either go to the gym or someone else's house just to have a shower. You know, I haven't been able to shave. Even washing the dishes is painful because it's freezing at night and then there's ice cold water and you're trying to wash stuff and then the house is freezing cold and there's no insulation because we live in Australia and it gets really hot in summer. So inside the house is colder than outside the house. There's no heating, no hot water. There's nothing to cook with. So I've got an air fryer. So I've been living off, you know, like, like freezer food and just absolute garbage. And so, you know, I'm at this point where I've been in this state of complete suffering and there's been absolutely no rush to get this sorted because they're going, oh, well, it's expensive. So we're going to get 5 different quotes on each different consecutive day to come and have a look at it. And so they've just taken an incredible amount of time despite it affecting my well-being significantly. And today it got to the point where, you know, I was having fires outside because I just needed to stay warm somehow. In this room, I'm all right. There's like a heater in my bedroom, but I can't live in here, you know what I mean? And so I've been having fires, but then all the firewood is wet, so like none of the wood's burning. And it's just been this incredibly punishing experience of everything just being extremely difficult. And so then, yeah, today it kind of got to me. And I'm like, man, this is such just a frustrating situation. Like I need to launch this business and start doing stuff, but I feel just gross because just to wash, I have to go elsewhere. And, you know, like the house is becoming run down and I'm cold and I'm malnourished, and just got to a point where I was like, man, I just can't be bothered with this. I just like almost feeling depressed to a degree. And, you know, I was just wasting my day just in my head, just sitting there. And I was like, just getting angry and frustrated and thinking about all the stuff I need to get done. And I'm like, oh, well, how am I going to do this if I don't have this? And just getting overwhelmed with it. And I took the dogs for a walk and I just thought about it. I'm like, wait a second. Like, despite everything that's going on, these are still excuses that you're making. Like, you don't need heating in order to get your business happening. You don't need to eat well in order to keep this stuff going. You don't need to be able to shower at your house to have everything happening. You don't have to be able to cook. You can still do everything that you need to do. You're just making these excuses because you're frustrated and you're angry. But the reality is that this vision and this business that you're trying to build, it's not going to build itself, and you have to put in the effort if you want it to happen. And most likely the universe is kind of, you know, it's very interesting that this all happened right as I'm stepping into this next version of my life, because this house has been frustrating. The heater downstairs that no longer works and was not compliant was a bit of a headache. You know, the water heater, like, can't really say much about that, but you know, the oven wasn't very good. Like, half the elements didn't work. And you know, now that I am no longer doing tree work and I'm building this studio and doing this this work for myself, where I'm going to have people coming to my house and stuff, it's like the universe threw this situation into my hands where my house is going to be perfect for it, and I'm going to have all the facilities I need, and everything will be very comfortable, and it will be a much more professional space rather than any of that other kind of just nonsense that I was dealing with prior. And so it's just been very interesting, and I just thought that I would, you know, rather than sit there and complain and get upset, it was like, no, I'm going to keep working, because if I can manage to continue working and continue to build this channel and build the business and not just get swept up by the frustration I'm feeling, imagine how much I'm going to be able to achieve when conditions are good, right? And that's why I've always looked at things. It's like, okay, well, you know, if I'm freezing to death every night and, you know, can't wash and feeling terrible because I'm not able to eat properly, and I'm low on money because I've quit my job and I'm trying to launch this business, but weeks keep going by and my bills keep stacking up. If I can manage to get through this when conditions are at their worst, imagine what I'm going to be capable of when they start to get better. Imagine what I'm going to be able to build. And through all this, you know, I had this vision where, so initially my plan for this business, it was just going to be teaching people how to manifest and use psychic development, teach people about psychic development and learn manifestation techniques and spiritual development. And going back to when I sold the tree gear, so I had to jump around a little bit, but you know, when I got inside, I had this big desire to play music, but I was like, no, I can't do that. I need to get this business sorted, because I still haven't launched it and I'm not earning money yet from it. I need to get that happening. And as I was walking the dogs, I was thinking about it, and I was like, wait a second, like, now that I do have this time and I will be earning money from this other job, which is a lot more flexible, I'll be able to like put my time and my effort into the band and into recording music and creating music and all this kind of stuff. That'll be really cool. And then I thought about it more and more, and I was like, wait a second. I was like, my entire vision this whole time has been the band, but also I've wanted to create a recording studio, which is a spiritual space to nurture creativity. And due to my earlier premonition, when I went and saw my old friend, I was being told to create a studio. And the reason I got so excited when I walked in as soon as I sold the tree gear is that holding onto that tree gear and having that backup plan was still me doubting my ability to succeed at this, and it was still an energetic blockage having that there. And after I physically removed it from my experience and was able to focus 100% on this vision that I have, I walked in and realized, wait a second, I do have the studio, I do have the spiritual space, I have been building this, I have the entire setup, I have the guitar skills, I have the recording skills, I have the mixing skills, I have the mastering skills, I have the spiritual manifestational psychic skills. I do have this whole thing, and it's not meant to be a case of doing spiritual and psychic development work and hope that works, and then I can eventually put my funds into this. This is the thing. What I meant to do is I meant to launch a spiritual recording studio where I help artists nurture their creative vision while also teaching psychic development and manifestation. And the way that I'm doing that is through the YouTube content and through my Instagram content. And so it's an entire moving business that I'm creating now, which is doing the one-on-one, you know, student type session work, recording the bands, nurturing their artistic vision, and pushing this spiritual genre as a movement, which will then also lead to opportunities for my band, which the music that I'm creating is my entire portfolio for what my skills are, which will eventually lead to me being able to take my band on tour, which will hopefully be with other bands that are part of this spiritual genre that I'm trying to nurture or champion. And then while on the road, hopefully developing my own following through this content and through my online content and content creation, I can then do like spiritual masterclass session works where, you know, fans can potentially pay an extra $50 and we do like an entire like manifestation masterclass before the set where we talk about creativity and we talk about spiritual development. And within doing this, this is how I can earn money. It wasn't necessarily the fact that I wasn't meant to earn money at all. It was that I'm meant to share this information for free and share the main body of the work that I wish to share, and the information and the psychic information and the manifestation techniques, sharing all of that information for free online, but then also being able to charge for my services as a creative producer or as a mentor or as a musician. And so this is kind of where I've now been led, where, you know, just due to back in March, sitting there and visualizing me having a career playing music and developing this entire reality, within just a matter of months, the universe threw so many things at me that pushed me and guided me in the direction to the point where I've actually landed smack bang at the very beginning of this entire venture that I've been thinking about since I was a kid. And so as I said, like I'm using, and one of the things that I've been shown within these visions is that I need to document the whole process, because everyone's experience is subjective. Everyone's manifestations are subjective, and the things that you're going to experience are completely subjective. But hopefully through doing this and being like, hey, these are my plans, this is what I'm visualizing, and this is what I'm trying to manifest, every week I can now release an episode of being like, okay, so last week or last month or 2 months ago in this episode, I spoke about wanting to manifest this particular vision. And over the last 2 months, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. And this is the way that I've perceived these things, and this is what I've picked up on, and this is how I've developed my psychic intuition in order to be able to understand these universal languages. And now after X amount of time, this has now happened. So I can show actual scientific proof that visualization and manifestation works through living the experience. And as this continues to grow and as this momentum builds, I'll begin developing a larger following of people that I can then show how to do this. And when enough people are kind of on board and understand that we do in fact create our own realities through our thoughts, our beliefs, our emotions, and focusing upon the reality that we want, and people are now actually believing this because they've experienced it for themselves and they've developed their psychic abilities themselves too, we can then co-create a better future that is away from all the sickness and the sadness that we're experiencing in the world, all of the corruption, all of the hatred, all of the anger, all of the fighting over overpopulation and the greed. Like, we can actually, instead of constantly fighting one another and getting involved in these debates and these arguments, we can in fact actually just focus upon a healthier future, which is based upon creativity and love and loyalty and abundance, and allow the universe to guide us there through listening to our psychic intuition, which will then in turn help us expand our consciousness and grow as a race, rather than grow as a race and move away from the system that we have built, because it's the system that is the issue, not one another. It's the lack of love and connectivity and unity that we have as a race, which is leading to all the problems that we have. That's why we have all this AI shit that everyone's against. That's why we have such difficult living conditions and overpopulation and arguments and fighting. And you know, you go on any social media and it's just bickering and arguing about who's right and who's wrong, and statistics and stats, and it's just absolutely nonsense, and it's so exhausting. And you know, and then if not anything, people are talking about politics and the wars and just anything negative all the time. But the reason that these things are continuing to exist is because people are focusing upon them. It's the focus upon the negativity that is manifesting more negativity. Whereas if you begin to realize that focusing upon positivity, focusing upon a more positive future, and developing your psychic skills and your psychic intuition as beings, we are actually capable of altering the trajectory that we're on and creating a much more beautiful and harmonious life for all of us. So yeah, but going back to my original point, there's always an excuse. And you know, the whole point of what I'm trying to create here is that if I'm in the middle of winter and I haven't had, you know, heating or hot water or the ability to cook, or you know, the ability to kind of eat well without spending significant amounts of money or having to spend money on fuel driving places just to take care of myself, and I can still create this content, I can still launch my business, and I can still try to put out a positive message of, you know, creativity and intuition and love and respect, and you know, trying to push this movement when I have every excuse to not do it. Surely you can at least stop focusing upon the excuses that are stopping you from doing what you want, because we all have a voice that's telling us where we want to go. There is always a thing that we are always thinking about, that it's the, oh man, I'd love to do this but it will never happen, or I'd love to do this but I can't afford it, or I'd love to do this but I have kids, or I'd love to do this but my partner won't let me, right? That thing that you'd love to do, it's never going to go away. Like, that voice in your head will never end. It never will. And you can either spend the rest of your life distracting yourself from it, because the universe wants you to do that thing. It knows that you going on that venture in your life will bring you the most fulfillment and the most excitement and the most wealth too, right? People get it in their head that they're going to make no money doing the thing that they love, but it's doing the thing that you love that will bring the wealth that you desire. And I can't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, the voice will never stop, man. Like, it will haunt you for the rest of your days. And as someone who has been following that voice and listening to it and paying attention to the universal signs that are guiding me to succeeding at the thing that I want, this version of life is so much better. I did the thing where I was making a shitload of money. I did the thing where I had financial wealth and all of the materialistic things that I wanted, and it didn't bring me the same fulfillment that following my dreams has. And I'm now finally at the point where I've been pursuing this enough, and it's a big enough vision that when I succeed at this, I'll be able to show everyone that this is possible. And the way I'm going to show this is possible is by documenting the entire process. And so I'll tell you what I see in my future at this given point. As I said, the thing that I'm pushing toward is I'm building a studio, and I'm going to spend my life creating music and helping artists bring forward the vision that they want in their life. I want to push to create a new spiritual genre of music, which is all based upon just nature and the earth and the I want to foster the human element again, and yeah, again, essentially create, or at least push a new spiritual genre of music, and make people's attention spans grow again, make people care about art, like push for art again, and eventually, hopefully not too soon, find some new band members and take my band on tour and share this message. Share it in my music. Share it in what I say on stage. Share it in the lyrics and in the notes that I'm playing and in the energy of the room. But also meet every single fan that I come across. Talk to every single person that I can who wants to know more. Holding, like group sessions where we talk about manifestation and psychic development and creativity and art beforehand, and make lifelong connections with as many people as I possibly can, and just try to inspire as many people as possible. Meanwhile, continuing to grow this channel, continuing to grow my socials, and also continuing to develop just a larger and larger vision and mission for this thing that I'm trying to create, which is what I've called Sumariwolf, which is there's a personal meaning behind it, which I won't get into the details of. But that's kind of it for this episode. That's kind of where I'm up to. Living like this is crazy. Every day, crazy stuff happens. As well, since the middle of 2019, I've been journaling everything that happens in my life, dated, marked, everything. For the last 7 years, I have almost everything that's happened in my life documented. And I figured this would be a very good way to continue doing that. But rather than having it as I'll probably still journal and everything, but I'm at the point where I'm confident enough about what I'm doing that I'm willing to put it out there and put it on the line and let people judge me based upon my ability to kind of do this stuff. But I have absolute confidence in this because, as I said, when I was going to launch the psychic business and psychic mentoring on its own, something was preventing me. There was something that I wasn't sure of. There was something that was just holding me back from doing it. And the moment I sold my tree gear and I got rid of the safety net, everything fell into place. And it was like, I saw the whole vision of this entire thing that I want to do. And it was the exact thing that I've been trying to manifest and focus upon for the last number of years, but only just recently in the last few months began to consciously focus upon it and consciously try to manifest it. So, as I said, to kind of tie it up, start this visualization exercise every morning. Get up a little bit earlier. You can do it in bed, you can go anywhere, but let your mind slowly wake up, but find somewhere and go and meditate for 10 minutes in the morning, just once a day, 10 minutes, and visualize the reality that you want to live. And don't hold back. Go for it. Go for the thing that you want. If you want to be a multi-millionaire living in the Himalayan mountains, right? Do it. Focus upon it and just see what happens, because it's not necessarily even about getting to your destination, but so many amazing things will happen that you can't actually explain to anyone because they'll think that you're crazy. But the more you do these things and the more you succeed in your life and the more you manage to manifest and you get this confidence in the belief that you have, other people will start to see it and they'll start to do it. And the more people we get doing this, the more people we can show that they have the actual power to live the life that they want, and that we're not powerless to the powers that be that are causing all the corruption in the world. So once a day, go meditate, go visualize, go focus upon it, and slowly start building your psychic intuition and try to pick up on the way that the universe is talking to you. Again, I'll always be sharing information on this. If you want to book a session, if you want to actually have a one-on-one session with me, hit me up. I haven't quite figured out my rates yet. They won't be extremely expensive, but we will definitely delve into where you're at, and I'll teach you exactly the process of what I would do in your situation in order to get to where you want and how to actually pick up on the information that you're trying to receive. So thank you for watching. This is the Sumariwolf podcast. My name is Brendan Mark Van Witchen, and I will catch you again every Wednesday. I'm going to do every Wednesday. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you soon.